He lied to me, sold me a dream home under false pretenses, and walked away like it was nothing. So I sent him flowers every year on the same day for 6 years. What started as a twisted joke ended up destroying his marriage, career, and his life. You ready? Buying a home is one of those milestones that feels like you've made it. For me, it wasn't just about bricks and walls. It was proof that all the sleepless nights, double shifts, and missed vacations were worth something. I'd been saving for 10 years. 10 long, exhausting, grinded out years. And finally I had enough to stop renting and start owning. The idea of calling a place mine. It was magic. Not in the cheesy, movie kind of way. I mean real, bone-deep pride. I signed that dotted line with shaking hands and walked into my new home like a king entering a castle. Sure, it wasn't a mansion. And sure, it came with a few compromises, but it was mine. And that meant everything. Now here's where things get interesting. See, because I was the only one on the mortgage, I had to make some tough choices. Price-wise, I couldn't afford a completely detached home in my area, so I looked into shared blocks. Where I live, a lot of properties are on what's called a strata title. Basically, it's like a shared ownership modeled common areas, shared maintenance, communal insurance. On paper, it sounds fine, but in reality, it means rules, restrictions, nosy neighbors, and endless committee meetings. For someone like me, privates, introverted, allergic to drama, that was a hard no. So I kept hunting, patiently, relentlessly. And then I found it, a rare gem, a shared block. Yes, but with a freehold title. That meant the land underneath my unit. Mind nobody corporate meetings, no meddling strangers telling me what color I could paint my front door. The only shared element was a walkway, and the only thing I need to display was the public liability insurance for that strip of concrete. Simple. The real estate agent was local. We didn't know each other, but there was a friends of friends kind of familiarity. You know, the type you don't know them directly, but you've seen them tagged in photos, heard their name mentioned at barbecues. It gave me a weird sense of security. Like maybe, just maybe, I was being looked after. The ads all said freehold. The listing, the brochures, even the emails between the agent and my lawyer. Every single piece of paper confirmed it. We triple-checked the title. Everything matched. My lawyer guy I trusted said it was all good. So I moved in. I unpacked boxes. I bought furniture. I planted herbs in little pots on the balcony. For 5 months, life was bliss. And then there was a knock at the door. It was the guy who owned a unit next to mine. We'd never spoken before. Friendly enough. He wanted to talk about insurance, said we needed to organize the shared liability for the walkway. I thought, cool, no problem. Asked him to send over a copy of the policy, just so I could file it away. A couple days later, I opened my inbox and nearly dropped my coffee. Strata Insurance. I reread it twice, 3 times. That can't be right. I thought, there had to be some mistake. Maybe he sent the wrong file. Nope, that was the right one. I called him. He confirmed it. The property wasn't freehold. It was strata, just like the very thing I'd been trying to avoid. I remember sitting on my couch staring at the wall. My heart wasn't racing. It was doing that slow, icy sync, the kind where your brain starts running through every conversation, every document, every assurance, trying to figure out how this happened. Because somehow, I'd been lied to, and I don't just mean a little mix-up. I mean full-blown misrepresentation. I had the listing in my hands, freehold title in bold. I had emails, signed documents. Everything screamed freehold. And yet it wasn't. At that moment, I didn't know how deep the rabbit hole went. I didn't know how bad things would get. But I knew one thing for certain. This wasn't over. It didn't take long for confusion to turn into full-blown obsession. The minute I saw that strata insurance document, my mind went into overdrive. I scoured everything. I had emails, sale, agreements, contracts, even old screenshots of the real estate ad. Every piece of communication with that agent echoed the same thing. That phrase was burned into my brain like a cruel joke. I remember calling my lawyer that same afternoon, voice trembling but come to calm like someone standing in the eye of a hurricane. I asked, is it possible there was a mistake? Can you double-check the title we reviewed? He paused, a long, unsettling pause. Then he said something I'll never forget. Give me a day. I'll get back to you. Now, I know legal types are usually cautious. They measure their words like gold dust. But even through the phone, I could feel his nerves tighten. 24 hours later, I had my answer. Yes, it's strata. And just like that, everything fell apart. You ever get so angry that your hands go cold instead of hot? That's what happened. It wasn't a scream, shout, punch the wall kind of anger. No, this was the kind that made me sit still, silent, thinking I'd been misled, lied to, conned even. And the worst part, it was in black and white. The listing said freehold. The agent said freehold. Even his emails to my lawyer, who, by the way, was just as blindsided as I was, spelled it out like a kindergarten book, E4EH. Simple, they never formally corrected the mistake. Somewhere in the sales pipeline, someone either didn't check the title properly or chose to ignore it. Either way, I was holding a property with more strings attached than I'd ever signed up for. I wasn't just angry, I was violated. My dream of independence, gone instead. I was now bound by body corporate decisions, had to deal with shared repairs, and couldn't even renovate a bathroom without jumping through bureaucratic hoops. I wanted answers, so I arranged a meeting with the real estate agent. I came prepared to mails printed, highlighted, cross-referenced to his damn thesis and betrayal. I didn't walk in angry. I walked in ready. This wasn't about yelling. It was about accountability. But the guy, he had that smug, slippery tone down to a science. Well. Property titles are tricky. Sometimes things slip through. It's not like it's a huge difference. Are you kidding me? Not a huge difference. That's like selling a brand new car, then delivering one with 3 wheels and saying, still drives. He danced around every point. He refused to admit fault, refused to take responsibility, and sure as hell refused to offer any compensation. I wasn't expecting a grand apology, but I thought maybe, just maybe, he'd meet me halfway, throw in something, cover the cost to fix the mistake, help me resell the place down the line. But nope, nothing. And here's where it gets even more insulting. I offered him a compromise. I said, fine, you don't want to fix the past. Help me fix the future. When I decide to sell, you list the property. No commission, no fee. Just listed like you would any other sale. Sounded fair, right? Wrong. He looked me in the eye and said, no. Then, like salt in a fresh wound, he added, I'll give you $1,000 to walk away. $1,000. That wasn't an offer. That was a slap dressed as a handshake. After that, we entered formal mediation. The mediator, bless her, tried her best. She looked over the documents, heard both sides, and turned to me privately with advice I never forgot. If you want to take this further legally, I think you'd win. But here's the catch. At that time, I was battling something much bigger, my health. Without going into too much detail, I wasn't in the shape to handle court dates, lawyers, depositions. The thought of dragging this through the system for years while I was already fighting my own battles, it was too much. So I let it go. On paper, at least. But in my mind, I didn't just let it go. I stored it, cataloged it, like a book on a dusty shelf, waiting for the right moment to be pulled out. Because even then, even in my lowest moment, I knew something he didn't. He thought he'd won. But I had already started plotting the long game, and let me tell you, revenge, when done right, it ages like wine. There's a special kind of rage that comes from being betrayed not by someone you love, but by someone who was supposed to be professional. Someone who, by law and basic decency, had your back. And when that person casually shrugs off their lie like it's no big deal, that rage goes nuclear. It wasn't just a mistake. Mistakes happen. People mess up, overlook details, get lazy. No, what burned me to my core was the total lack of ownership, the denial, the arrogance, the smug little grin that said, what are you gonna do about it? I wasn't a millionaire. I wasn't buying up luxury properties or flipping I was a regular person who saved for a decade to finally own something. One shot, one chance. And this guy took that, tainted it with his negligence, and then dared to act like I was overreacting. Even now I can still hear his voice in my head. That oily, fake calm tone. The kind of voice that has been trained to say I understand, while meaning I don't care. He used phrases like, it's a complicated industry, and these things aren't always black and white. No, buddy, this was black and white. Literally, in your listing, in your emails, in the contract. All of it said freehold. What kind of real estate agent doesn't know the difference between strata and freehold? Either he was criminally or he knew, and just hoped I wouldn't. And here's the real kicker. During mediation, when it was clear he wasn't budging, the mediator gave me one final option. Go legal. She even said you've got a rock-solid case. If this goes to court, he'll have to answer for it. But I couldn't. At that point in my life, I was dealing with medical issues that drained every ounce of energy I had. I was already seeing doctors more than friends. Every day felt like a fight, and I wasn't about to start another worn-out one that would take years, thousands of dollars, and every last bit of my strength. So I walked away. To him, that probably looked like surrender. To me, it was just patience. Because see, when you push a quiet person too far, when you corner someone who doesn't yell or scream but remembers, you create a different kind of enemy. One who plans, one who waits. And I started planning that very night. It began as a joke in my head. A petty little fantasy I played out before bed. What if I sent him something? Nothing threatening, just weird. Just enough to confuse him. To make him wonder. To plant a seed of doubt in his life like he did in mine. I imagined flowers arriving at his office with a cryptic note, maybe something romantic, maybe something crazy, and I'd laugh myself to sleep. But the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. He took something important from me. He caused me stress, anxiety, and financial loss. And while I couldn't sue him in court, maybe I could sentence him to something worse. Paranoia. That was the seed. And once it was planted in my head, oh man, it bloomed fast. I remembered seeing his Facebook profile months earlier. It wasn't private. Rookie mistake. He had a photo album from a boys' trip overseas, tagged, dated, everything. And that date Just happened to be a few months before he sold me the property. And just like that, the story wrote itself. What if there was a woman? What if he did cheat? What if something happened on that trip, and all it took was the right nudge to make the past come back to haunt him? That's when I knew. This wasn't going to be a one-time prank. This was going to be art. I didn't want revenge that screamed. I wanted one that whispered, one that crept into his mind, curled up next to his secrets, and whispered, I know. And if I did it right, he'd destroy himself. All I had to do was wait. I had everything I needed: documents, proof, advice from a mediator who straight up said I could win in court. Anyone else might have taken that and gone full legal assault. But me, I backed off. Not because I was scared, not because I didn't want justice, but because I was fighting a war on two fronts. See, life doesn't wait for your revenge to be ready. It throws curveballs when you least expect them. Around the same time all this went down, my health decided to collapse on me. I won't get into the nitty-gritty, but let's just say I was dealing with something serious. Something that left me too exhausted to fight anyone except myself. Doctor's appointments, meds, tests, fatigue. I didn't have the strength to chase a lawsuit, no matter how righteous it felt. Every ounce of energy I had was going toward just getting through the day. And when your own body turns on you, even a legal win starts to feel like a luxury you can't afford. But that didn't mean I was letting him off the hook. No, what I decided wasn't surrender, it was strategy. I didn't need a courtroom. I didn't need a judge or a jury. What I needed was time. Because if there's one thing I've got in spades, it's patience. Some people get even fast. They scream, they post online, they make a scene. Not me. I believe in the slow burn, the long play, the kind of revenge that doesn't just sting, it unravels you. So I waited. Quietly, I healed. I recovered, and while I did, I planned, I watched, I kept tabs, not obsessively, just enough to stay informed. People talk, especially in small communities. It wasn't hard to hear about his latest deals, his social life, the car he drove, the trips he took. One Facebook post here, a tagged photo there. He was still living like nothing ever happened. But I never forgot, not for a second. And when my health finally stabilized, when I felt strong again, I went back to that idea I had in the dark days. The fantasy, the joke, the flowers, the love notes, the creeping suggestion of a hidden past. It started to feel less like a prank and more like a performance, a psychological ballet, one that only I could choreograph. But before I made my move, I made a promise to myself. No violence, no threats, no illegal stuff. I wasn't going to be the villain in this story. That role was already taken. I was going to be something far more powerful, the ghost he couldn't shake. That's what I became. A whisper, a question mark. And the best part, he would never know it was me. While he slept beside his wife, while he shook hands with clients, while he smiled for the camera, I was already writing the script to his downfall, one cryptic message at a time. So, no, I didn't take him to court, I took him to the edge. And slowly, I pushed. You ever stare at someone and wonder what it would take to break them? Not physically, not even publicly, but deep down, quietly. That's where my mind went. Day after day, month after month. I didn't want revenge that scorched the earth. I wanted one that soaked into the soil, unseen, undetectable, but absolutely permanent. And so began the long game. The first piece was already in place, his Facebook profile. Wide open, no privacy settings. He might have sold homes for a living, but clearly, securing his own digital life wasn't a priority. I didn't need much, just a few vacation pictures. One album titled Boys on Tour, dated about 6 months before he sold me the house. Lots of beer, beach, and bad decisions. That was my starting point. I cross-checked the travel dates with the property sale timeline. Turns out, it had been almost exactly a year before my official move-in date. And I thought, how poetic, because that's when I knew what I was going to do. Each year, on the anniversary of the sale, our special day, so to speak, I would send him something. A gift, a note, something simple, something eerie, just enough to whisper in his ear and make him wonder, who the hell is Elle? I picked the name Elle because it was vague. Romantic could be anyone. Could be no one. It rolled off the tongue easily, and more importantly, it left no trail back to me. The first year, I sent flowers, a modest bouquet, white lilies, no return address, just a small card that read, Dear real estate agent, remembering you on this our special day. She has your eyes. Love, Elle, that's it. No threat, no drama, just confusion. I imagined him reading it, staring blankly, turning it over in his hands, trying to piece together what it meant, asking himself, who's Elle? Who has my eyes? What special day? That's all I wanted, because the brain is a funny thing. When you give it a mystery with just enough pieces, it'll do the rest of the work for you. It'll fill in the blanks. It'll create a story that gnaws at the edges of your sanity. The second year I sent a different bouquet. Red roses this time. Same signature. On this our special day, thinking of you. The little one asks about you. Love, Elle. That's when I knew I had him. Why? Because I heard from a friend of a friend that his wife had asked him about it. Apparently he played it off. Said it was a prank, but he looked rattled. Good to third year, I skipped the flowers and sent a letter, postmarked from Thailand. Took some effort, had to coordinate with the travel blogger I followed, paid her a small fee to drop it in a local postbox. The note was written in cursive on elegant stationery. Nothing too dramatic, just, I see her smile in the mirror every day. She's getting so big. Love always, L. Now imagine being him. You went on a guy's trip years ago. Maybe something happened, maybe it didn't. But suddenly, someone's writing to you like there's a secret out there. A secret you might have buried. And the letters keep coming, year after year. Each one a little more personal, a little more unsettling. One year, a necklace in a tiny velvet pouch. Another year, a baby photo with a face blacked out and a single line, "ULL, meet her one day." I didn't overdo it. That was key. One message, once a year. Just enough to be remembered. Just enough to keep the paranoia alive. Because that's the beauty of a long game. You don't need speed. You need precision. You need patience. Let them unravel themselves. And it worked. I started to hear whispers. Through mutual friends, acquaintances. His marriage was rocky. He was distracted at work. Less charming, more withdrawn. And every time June rolled around, people said he got weird, mission accomplished, but I wasn't finished. Because flowers and letters were just the beginning. Next, I took it international. There is a strange kind of satisfaction that comes from watching someone crack and knowing you never had to touch them to do it. Just words. Just symbols. Just little reminders. Delivered once a year. On the same haunting day. The phrase that tied it all together. On this, our special day. Those 6 words became the heartbeat of my revenge. They were vague enough to be harmless, but loaded with emotional landmines if you looked at them long enough. And when repeated year after year, with variations just subtle enough to keep him guessing, they became a ritual one he couldn't escape. The 4th year I sent something a bit different. Not flowers, not a letter. This time it was a music box, a delicate antique-looking thing I'd found online. I had it mailed directly to his office. No return name. Inside was a tiny ballerina twirling to a haunting lullaby. Taped to the lid, a note she dances just like I did on this our special day. I imagined the moment he opened it, alone in his office, or maybe with a colleague nearby, trying to play it cool, but inside, shaking, because that's what happens when something doesn't make sense, but feels too personal to ignore. And still I gave him nothing he could report. Nothing threatening, nothing concrete, just implication, just questions. Year 5, I sent a hand-knitted baby sweater, pale blue, tiny, with a tag stitched into the collar. That one, I timed perfectly. Mailed it just before his anniversary. According to whispers in the grapevine, he and his wife had started couples counseling that year. Things weren't going well. Trust was thin, tension high, and here I come, threading doubt into the seams of their marriage like a tailor of chaos. The 6th year, my final flourish, I returned to flowers, a bouquet of wild daisies. Just wrapped in brown paper with a handwritten card that said, "This is the last time I'll reach out. She deserves better, but I'll always remember you on this, our special day." And that was it. No more messages after that. I went dark, because the most terrifying sound in a horror movie, ISNT, the scream at S, the silence after I'd done my job. For 6 years I'd played the ghosts, the mistake, the maybe. I gave him a story and let his mind write the rest. But the final act wasn't mine to deliver, because soon after that last delivery, the house of cards collapsed. I heard from someone close to the circle. His wife had finally snapped. She'd kept track of every year, every gift, every creepy note she'd confronted him, not just about the messages, but about that trip years ago, the one in Poop, the one he thought he'd buried. And guess what? He confessed. Maybe it was guilt, maybe it was panic, maybe he just cracked under the weight of 6 years of whispers, but he admitted to cheating, to something happening on that trip. He had mentioned the flowers from L like it was some long-lost chapter he couldn't shake. His wife filed for divorce not long after, and it wasn't just the marriage that went down with him. His real estate license lapsed. His business fell apart. Word got around, as it does. Turns out the guy who used to sell dreams had been living a lie of his own. Clients stopped trusting him. Partners distanced themselves. He lost the house, lost half his savings, lost his reputation. And me, I just smiled. Because every year, while he opened his gifts in fear, I opened mine in satisfaction, knowing that the man who once brushed off ruining my life had now unraveled his own, one special day at a time. By year 3, I realized something powerful. He was starting to believe it. Not just that he might have cheated, but that there might actually be someone out there carrying his secret. A woman, a child, a whole hidden life unraveling under the weight of suggestion. And that's when I leveled up. It wasn't enough for the reminders to come from nearby. I wanted him to feel like this mystery wasn't just close. It was everywhere. Global, lingering just beyond his reach. So, I brought L back from abroad. I reached out to a travel blogger I followed. Friendly person, always looking to fund their trips. I asked if they could do me a small favor, mail a few handwritten letters for me from Thailand, postmarked in They didn't ask questions. I sent them the notes and covered postage, along with a generous tip. The first postcard was simple: a beach, a bar, a handwritten scroll, Still here. She loves the ocean. You should see her run. Love always. It was vague, romantic, painful, the kind of message that, if you were innocent, would confuse you. But if you weren't, if you were guilty, it would cut straight through the chest. I didn't expect a reaction right away. But a few weeks later I heard a whisper. Someone from our mutual network casually mentioned, "Hey, did you know a real estate agent got a postcard from Phuket at work?" His assistant said it was weird as hell. No return name, just signed L. I just nodded. Wow, strange. The second one came a year later. A bit darker. I wanted it to feel like the story was evolving, that Elle was tired, that the fantasy wasn't so dreamy anymore. This one came in a small envelope, same delicate handwriting. She asks about you more lately. I don't know what to tell her. Do I lie or do I tell her you didn't want us? Think about it. Lavelle, I made sure it was mailed to his home. He wouldn't be able to shrug this one off at the office. No playing it cool. His wife would see it, maybe even open it. And if she'd already been wondering, this would fan the flames. Because now, it wasn't just about a mistake, it was about consequences. And I didn't have to forge anything. I didn't need fake DNA tests or elaborate lies. Just a little emotion. A little suggestion. That's all it takes when someone's hiding something. The final letter from abroad. That one came after the divorce papers were filed. I sent it from Singapore, just to switch it up. Short. Simple. The last thread in the net. I heard what happened. I've never wanted this, but I hope now, maybe, you understand what it feels like to lose everything. I didn't send anything after that. I didn't need to. Because at that point, Elle wasn't just a name anymore. She was a presence, a symbol, a curse he couldn't escape, and the best part, I never existed. There was no Elle, no daughter, no betrayal in Thailand except the one he actually committed. But all it took to destroy him was a story. A story, I whispered, one sentence at a time, from across oceans. It started with the postcards, then the flowers, then the late-night arguments his neighbors overheard. Little things at first, whispered phone calls, closed doors, tense silences between him and his wife at gatherings where they used to light up the room. People began to notice Gust Bailey. Just enough. You know how it goes. A glance held too long. A smile that doesn't quite reach the eyes. That's when the first domino tipped. He confessed, not because he wanted to, but because he had to. Because whatever firestorm had been building inside his house for years finally reached critical mass, according to a mutual acquaintance. It happened after my 6th message. The wild daisies. The note that said, "She deserves better, but I'll always remember you. On this our special day." That one broke her. Apparently she'd kept every flower card, every note, filed them away, quietly, not confronting him at first, collecting the evidence, watching, waiting for the pattern to reveal itself, and it did, because no one forgets the date they were betrayed, especially not her. She looked back at their timeline, realized that special day was a year to the day after he'd returned from that boys' trip. The one he swore was just drinking, sun, and bad karaoke. Except, he'd come back with an STD one he'd passed on to her, one he somehow convinced her wasn't from him. Until now, until she confronted him, and this time, there was no slippery smile, no smooth excuse, just panic, shame, and the slow collapse of a carefully constructed lie. He confessed to cheating, said it was a one-time thing, probably hoping that downplaying it would save their marriage. But it didn't. She filed for divorce, and not just that, she went scorched earth. Word spread fast. Turns out, when you're a real estate agent whose job is built on image and trust, having your wife publicly torch your personal life tends to affect your professional one too. The second domino fell. His reputation, clients backed out, listings disappeared, his name stopped showing up in the top agent newsletters. Whatever charm he used to have evaporated the moment his secrets hit the street. People started whispering. Some thought he'd had a child overseas. Others said he was being blackmailed. The best part, I didn't even have to say a word. The messages had done all the talking. He didn't just lose business. He lost respect. Then came the third domino, his home. The house he once bragged about, the one with the pool, the perfectly trimmed hedges, the sleek modern interior he used for listing photos. Gone. She got it in the divorce, along with half his retirement savings, and from what I heard, a chunk of his commissions from the last few years. He downsized, hard, moved into a rented apartment on the edge of town. Nothing fancy, just enough to keep a roof over his head. That's where the fourth domino landed. His career, the real estate license, lapsed. The boutique agency he started, closed. The website vanished. Business cards gone. It was like he never existed. A ghost of a man who once wore designer suits and promised dream homes to families. Now reduced to a name people whispered about with awkward glances and unfinished sentences. I ran into someone who used to work for him. She told me he'd tried to start fresh. New town, different job. But his confidence was gone. Couldn't close deals. Couldn't charm clients. Couldn't even sell himself anymore, because that's what paranoia does. It doesn't just haunt you, it hollows you out. And all I did was give him the push. One card. One flower. One perfectly timed message. Once a year. No confrontation. Just suggestion. Implication. a ghost story that slowly became real. And here's the part that still makes me laugh. He never knew it was me. He never connected it back to the sale. Never realized that the property he lied about, the one he used to screw me over, was the very thread I used to unravel him. The poetic justice of it. Delicious. I was never loud, never obvious. I didn't post online or rant in public. I didn't scream for justice. I whispered, patiently, strategically, and the universe, listen. Some people say karma takes care of things. I say, sometimes karma needs a little help. Just when I thought the story had wrapped itself up in a neat little bow, karma came in with a surprise encore when I didn't see coming but couldn't have scripted better myself. Remember that STD he gave his wife? The one he blamed on a faulty test or some nonsense about a contaminated spa towel during his trip. Yeah, that little lie was the original fracture in their relationship. The one she chose to ignore back then. Love makes you believe stupid things sometimes, especially when you want to. And he was charming, liars usually are. But it turns out that wasn't an isolated event. That lie, that cover story, it was the cornerstone of his downfall. Because once everything came to light after she found the notes, confronted him, got him to confess, she revisited that betrayal. She finally saw it for what it was. His first sin, the beginning of the end. And guess what? She told people, she told friends, family, her divorce lawyer, and one of those people told someone else. Who told someone else? Who told me? Turns out, about a year before I bought my home, before I ever met him, before he handed me that poison dream, he was already neck deep in lies. He went on that boys' trip, cheated, caught something, brought it home, and gave it to her. And somehow, miraculously gaslighted her into believing he was innocent. She forgave him, or at least pretended to. But now, with 6 years of hell haunting her mailbox, the truth clawed its way back up from the grave. And this is the beautiful twist. My revenge accidentally hit the perfect nerve. I didn't know about the STD, I didn't know about the lie, or the timing, or that his wife had already suspected something. I was just playing a character L, the woman from his past. I built the fantasy on coincidence, and somehow, it perfectly overlapped with his real sin. It was like fate decided to collaborate with me. I planted seeds of doubt, and the universe added fertilizer. It was never just about the fake affair. It was about his guilt, about how easily he caved. The notes didn't destroy him as past did. I just handed it a mirror. And that's when I realized something even deeper. This wasn't just a story of revenge. It was a story of just as slow, poetic, and unreal. Because every lie he told stacked on the one before it. And eventually, the tower collapsed. Not because I screamed or fought or sued, but because truth, real or imagined, always finds its way home. I didn't destroy him. He did that all by himself. I just lit the fuse. Sometimes I sit back and wonder, did I go too far? After all, I didn't just get closure. I dismantled a man's life, marriage, gone, career, ruined, reputation, obliterated, and all of it without ever stepping into a courtroom or uttering a single public word against him. Just flowers, letters, whispers. So yeah, sometimes I wonder. But then I remember that day I found out I'd been lied to. How I sat in my living room staring at those documents, feeling like the floor had been ripped out from under me. I remember the tone in his voice when I confronted him, dismissive, smug, like I didn't matter, like my life, my savings, my trust were just a rounding error in his bottom line. He didn't just make a mistake, he knew he covered it. He doubled down on the lie. Then he had the audacity to offer me $1,000 to go away, like that would undo the stress, the lost time, the sheer helplessness I felt. So no, I don't regret it. Not really. Because what I gave him wasn't pain. It wasn't even revenge in the classic sense, it was perspective. A slow, creeping look at what it feels like to have your foundation crumble beneath you. The way mine did. And the difference? He had it coming. I didn't. It's not about being petty. It's not about playing God. It's about making sure that, for once in his life, he had to look over his shoulder, question the silence, dread the mail, just like I did every day after discovering his lie. So yeah, maybe I feel a tiny flicker of guilt every now and then. A shadow of a second thought. But then I think he still doesn't know it was me. And that's the part that makes it all worth it. So, what do you think? Did I go too far? Or did I simply serve a dish best enjoyed, cold, calculated, and delivered once a year in the form of flowers and heartbreak? Revenge doesn't always have to be loud. Sometimes, the most devastating moves are the quiet ones, the ones that slip under the radar and settle deep in your enemy's mind. The kind that doesn't just punish, it haunts. I didn't take him to court, I didn't shout from rooftops. I never broke a single law, but I broke him. All I used were words, timing, and a little imagination. And maybe, just maybe, a touch of karma. If this story left you stunned, hit that like button. If you've ever dreamed of the perfect revenge or pulled off one of your own, drop your story in the comments. And if you love content where the bad guys get exactly what they deserve, don't forget to subscribe. We've got more tales of poetic justice coming your way. Because in the end, revenge isn't about rage. It's about remembering. And trust me, I never forget.